And we interrupt the senior hour to bring you this important functional medicine breakthrough. Going to head it on over to our functional medicine expert, Dr. Thomas Pilecki.
Hi, Jen. Thanks. New research is showing why most migraine treatments fail. Here's what you need to know, and to finally break through that constant vicious cycle of migraine pain. But first, I'd like to introduce a good friend. Alona Yorkshire runs The Sanctuary, a 501c3 nonprofit that rescues animals from abuse and neglect, rehabilitates them, and then in that process helps other people heal in return. Certified professionals in animal-assisted therapies provide therapeutic interventions focusing on adults and children with disabilities or a history of trauma and abuse. So, did I miss anything, Alona?
I will add, thank you so much for the introduction. I will add that I actually run the Adult Skills Center. I'm the Deputy Executive Director, and that is another nonprofit that helps people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And one of our programs is the Sanctuary, as you mentioned. But we have a lot of different programs.
Yeah, you got a lot of plates.
Yeah, that support individuals, I said, with IDD.
IDD?
Intellectual developmental disabilities.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. I love acronyms, but they're always shorthand for that some people may not be familiar with, like me. So Alona, tell us a little bit about your responsibilities. Why did you take on such a huge passion for helping people? What is that all about?
Well, I guess it's a longer story, but I grew up, with a lot of trauma, a lot of needs in my own family, and as many people who end up helping others later in life, that's sort of how it starts, is you want to, you have empathy. And so I started, as many do in this field, as a registered behavior technician, working for the Adult Skills Center, and continued my education through a master's and being licensed as a behavior analyst, and just continued to grow our programs. We now support probably about 500 people a day between San Fernando, Santa Clarita, and Antelope Valleys. And then the farm, our agency got a grant, so to speak, from the state for mental health services for people with disabilities. And unfortunately, it was believed that people with developmental and intellectual disabilities couldn't participate in mental health treatment, which is totally not true. And so when we got that grant, we started the Sanctuary in order to provide some of those mental health therapies, but we also provide occupational therapy, physical therapy, and all sorts of other therapies at the Sanctuary. It's home to about 30 rescued animals, so it's a really wonderful community.
And we're talking like real farm animals, not like cats and dogs.
Yes, and I live at the farm in full disclosure, so I'm sort of the de facto caregiver to the farm and to the animals, so that is a lot. When I tell people about myself, I like to say I have 3 kids, 30 animals, and 300 employees. It's kind of a fun way to succinctly put it.
Yeah, and so I am so impressed with all that you do every single day for so many people in so many different ways. But I'd like to get into the topic of today's show and how we met in the first place, why we met in the first place, and what that all means to you. If that's okay, share as much as you feel comfortable with.
Absolutely, I'll share everything. I hope it helps anyone out there, because I was really looking. I was direly looking when I found you, so I hope other people can find you as well. So it started with like I mentioned, I just had a lot of responsibilities. I have 3 kids in total. I'm a foster mom. I have 2 older teenagers, and then I have a biological baby boy who's now 3. So it started when I had him, and I had a pretty traumatic childbirth, and then followed by a pretty intense, stressful year, both personally and professionally. And I think what we've kind of narrowed it down over the years is what happened was all the stress combined with some posture issues when you have a baby, as many of out there, a lot of time you spent looking down at your child when you're holding them, when you're breastfeeding, when you're doing all of those things. And so I think just it was a perfect storm of reasons. And I woke up one day, and I know exactly what day it was because my life changed forever. I woke up with a migraine, and I was like, okay, this is a bad migraine. A couple of days went by, a week went by. It wasn't getting better, it was getting worse. And I mean like level 10, like you can't do anything pain. I have a lot of responsibilities, as you just heard. I have 3 children. I'm a single parent. I have a huge company to run. I have all the animals, and I couldn't do anything. And I was scared I was going to lose everything because weeks turned into months. And I tried everything, and I mean everything. I tried acupuncture. I have Kaiser, so in Kaiser, they tried everything, all the different medications, tried every medication on the market for a migraine, all the shots, Botox, neuro blocks, I mean everything that exists. At one point, I got a book my therapist gave me that was called like 1,000 Ways to Treat a Migraine, and I just started literally crossing one off at a time, going down the list of 1,000 things, and I almost got through all of them. That's how bad it was. It lasted about that process of desperate searching for something to help me. That lasted about a year.
Ouch.
And I really thought I wasn't gonna be alive anymore. Like I really. It was one of the most traumatic things that has ever happened to me. And in desperation, I had to take some medical leave at work. I actually, which, side note, turned out kind of cool because I ended up staying at the farm because I couldn't do much. I couldn't use a computer. That was one other thing. So I had to do everything live in person. So I actually ended up starting to treat more clients myself, which was a beautiful thing during that time. But during that time, I was at the farm one day, and when you have a migraine, everyone gives you recommendations. So so and so I know tried this, and so tried this, and trust me, I mean I did Reiki, I did it all. There isn't anything I didn't try. So one day I was at the farm, and one of my fellow therapists was like, "You just don't look good," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not good." And she's like, she sent me a text that someone who knows someone went to a chiropractor, but not just a regular chiropractor, someone who specializes in upper cervical care. And she was in the same boat that I was, years of migraine with no help, but it was in another state. So I hit the internet and I started looking for someone who does that, but here, and I was shocked to find Dr. Palaki, who was right here in Santa Clarita. And I called on a Saturday crying, I remember, and Dr. Palaki actually picked up on a Saturday. His office was closed, and made me an appointment for Monday. I came in on Monday, and that's sort of where our journey started. And that was 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So step by step,
Mm-hmm.
how do you remember that first interaction? How'd you feel about it? What looked to you different than the 1,000 things that you checked off in that book? And what was your experience moving forward?
Okay, so the first office visit, I mean, I'll be honest, at that point I'd spent $20,000 probably on medical treatments and countless doctor's visits. So I had sort of a careful apprehension, like, okay, this is just one more thing. You're always kind of like hopeful in that first visit with a new treatment, but also like you don't want to get your hopes shot down because it's so painful to have, a little bit of hope and then it disappear. So the office staff, first of all, was amazing.
Oh, thank
just
you.
a really like warm and, awesome atmosphere. I think, if I'm honest, one of the other things was I was surprised that the price was really like doable. It wasn't, this new this $500 new treatment. It was, I believe, $79 or whatever it was at the time. And so it was just, I felt pretty comfortable with it. I didn't feel like there was like a sale going on. Dr. Palaki shared with me that, the reason you got into this field is because of your own migraine story. And so that made me feel instantly more understood and comfortable. Like, this is someone who's been here for years. And I don't know if you've shared
Decades.
with the listeners that you were yourself in our situation. And so that was really great. So there was no promises of like a quick fix, which I understood. So what we focused on was, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is my upper cervical adjustment, and also some of the supplements, because at that point I was on on so much pain medication and migraine medication that I just knew that was also causing the migraine because, medication overuse headache, right? And I was on medication every single day for years, or a year and a half or whatever it was. And so getting me off of some of those chemicals and introducing more, herbal supplements and things that you can explain better than I can. So those were the two primary treatment modalities. We also at some point you sent me to a CAT scan, right? To do, to have a little bit more information on the adjustments that we were doing. Initially, I was coming in 4 days a week, so every day that you were open. The whole treatment takes 5 to 10 minutes, so it's a really quick stop in. I did it around my lunch breaks typically. I started graphing my pain level every day because there wasn't really no pain-free days for a long time. It was just a matter of how much pain I was in. So I started graphing that, and it was really hard for a few months to see the ups and downs. But when I looked at it over time, there was a definite improvement, and the most important part is I was able to access my life, more and more. And that's how I could also tell. It's like, okay, I could use the computer. I could tolerate, being around like a lot of loud children. For example, if I took my son to a play date or whatever, the park, whatever it was, I could, go to work and participate in meetings without feeling overwhelmed by all the stimuli. When you have a migraine, most of you know that that's really hard. So all of those things, began improving. And now I see you once a week probably. And that's honestly, I don't even know that I need to see Dr. Palaki once a week. It's more like, I'm so scared of it going wrong at this point because I'm so traumatized by how bad it was that I feel the need to sort of maintain my progress. And so I think that, I might have missed some stuff in between. You can tell me.
You're perfect. What I would like to circle back on is you touched on it, the fear that when we know fear, like migraine people know fear, like very few people do. Probably it is a form of like warfare. Like it is war with our own brain. Like it is scary.
Right.
It's scary. You're constantly terrified of first of all, is this ever going to get better?
Yes.
And second of all, as soon as you do get some relief, when is it coming back?
Right.
It's like a nonstop terror campaign
Anxiety, yeah.
that you cannot get away from. And as you experience and I experience, and so many people that I know over the past 35 years experience with migraines, pretty much nothing changes that. I did explore some of the options. It's been a while since I've gotten conventional medical treatment for it, so you're more fresh with this stuff than I am. But at the time, I had tried everything, and nothing touched it until I found upper cervical care, and it literally transformed my life. I was testing for med school, and I walked away. I walked away from the most prestigious medical school on the planet, interested in me, not the other way around. I wasn't like fighting to get into Johns Hopkins. They wanted me, and I walked away from that. And that you can debate on whether that was smart or not. I'd love to have that degree and still do what I'm doing, but I don't know that that's possible. I don't know that it's possible to work within that framework and still be able to do what I do.
Yeah, it's really sad.
If I could turn back the clock, I would have, and I would have figured out how.
Right.
Because it's a lot easier for, a Johns Hopkins graduate MD specialist to make a recommendation than a chiropractor.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I will briefly talk about my journey with like Kaiser and more traditional approaches. So, Kaiser refused to even look at my upper cervical. I mean, they're just like, this is ridiculous. I thought that it was interesting that they authorized acupuncture, but not chiropractic care because, it seems like they would be sort of around the same type of, research available on those. Even when so at one point the pain was so bad that I couldn't sleep for 4 days. And if you've ever not slept for 4 days, you know that you sort of lose yourself. And so I was hospitalized at Kaiser for a week, where the preeminent headache person in like the country happened to be one of the heads of their neurology department. She was working on my case, and it ended with me getting DHE infusions for a week, like for an entire week, just throwing up. I mean, it was awful. The second I left the hospital, like the migraine was it wasn't even that gone while I was in the hospital. It was maybe a little better, but as soon as I left, it was just exactly the same. And so the fact that, what you do isn't known, is just a really sad fact of our medical system, I think, because, I don't know that enough about it to speak about it, but I feel that there is a propensity towards things that are more like pharmaceutical. All the treatments that, I was given were pharmaceutical in nature. None of them were trying to fix the structure or the reason why the migraine was there in the first place. And honestly, most of it made it worse. I mean, there might be like short-term relief from different, triptans and other medications for migraines, Botox. I mean, all of those things maybe tiny bit relief, but not enough to speak about, to be honest. And with the side effects and all of the other things, the long-term health effects, I feel like are even worse.
I understand.
Yeah.
Like only somebody who has been there in the trenches could possibly understand. I hope you can stay when we get back from the break. I want to show how it doesn't have to be like that. You're listening to the hijacked version of the Senior Hour, Migraine Relief Mastery on KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, hometownstation.com.
And we interrupt the Senior Hour to bring you this important functional medicine breakthrough over to our functional medicine expert, Dr. Thomas Pilecki.
Thanks, Jen. New research shows why most migraine treatments fail, and here's what you need to know to finally break free from migraine pain. In the studio today, we have my good friend Alona Yorkshire. She runs a bunch of nonprofits. I can't even keep track. Would you say you have 3 children,
30 animals.
30 animals, and
300.
300 employees? So that's a lot of responsibility. And when we met, what hit me most was your fear about losing it all.
Yeah.
That's what connected with me. And I was like, okay, let's do this.
Well, yeah, I was in your office literally crying every other day. So I'm sorry about that. But
Not at all.
yeah, so going back to the fear, one of the things, when you have a migraine, and I have friends that have gone through this, and we all know other people, is when you get a migraine, you expect it to, impact your whole day. And then if you're one of the unlucky people that has a migraine for a week, then you're like, okay, it's going to impact all of these activities. How do I get my children to where they need to be? How do I take this important work meeting? I have a presentation due, whatever it is. If it lasts a month or if you have it for years, when you're in the initial shock of it, I feel like, when I try to explain it to people, it's like learning how to live if you, God forbid, you're in a car accident and you lose your, being able to walk, and your whole life needs to be readjusted. It's a lot like that when that first migraine that lasts, months hits you. You really have to relearn how to live. You can't live the same way you used to. And for someone who has so much going on, there's no room for error. And I honestly don't remember some of those first few months because they were so horrifying. When I first met you, I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to take care of my children. I was contemplating actual nerve surgery. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like migraine surgery where they essentially go in and cut your nerves to your head. It's not what you want. And months of rehab from that, where they told me I couldn't even pick up my baby, and I don't have anyone else to pick up my baby. He was 6 months at the time. So I was like, how I can't parent, I can't be a mom, what do I do? And then I ended up in the hospital and 5 days of that, and thankfully different friends and my chosen family, I should say, stepped up to the different roles and helped, but that couldn't have lasted forever. They all have their own lives and their own children and their own responsibilities. They couldn't run my life for me. So at one point, I was on the phone. Well, not at one point, a lot of points I was on the phone crying with my boss, the executive director, and saying please replace me. I'm so sorry. I can't do my job. And at that point, I had been with the agency for 15 years. I established many of the programs that we run. And so thankfully, that's another part of my family, and my job was no, go take care of yourself, do what you need to do. And Task is really amazing in that way. It's
Task,
the Adult Skill Center, where I work. I'm the deputy executive director, and so I have many responsibilities there. But my boss was just no, take the time that you need. We're not replacing you. Don't be crazy. Just do what you have to do. And so I at that point I stayed home for probably 6 months. I couldn't drive. I couldn't shop. It was terrifying. And so then when I met you and I started seeing glimpses of relief, anytime there was any backsliding, which happens in migraine treatment, you'll start getting a little bit better, and maybe you'll go a week in a pretty good place, and then you'll get it again. All of that fear that you felt for those 6 months or a year all comes flooding back in, and it is terrifying because you think, oh my gosh, what if this right now, the way I feel right now, doesn't go away for 6 months? And you can't plan your life, you can't do anything, and it is absolutely terrifying. And you're in pain, like in intense pain, so of course you can't think straight. So then depression and anxiety sets in, and then you're getting treated for that. And then I will say the other modality that helped me other than you is therapy, essentially. I did hypnotherapy, which was helpful, and just good old therapy in terms of like how I think about my attacks in order to not trigger that intense fear and anxiety, because then it's a loop. The more tense you are, the more pain you're going to have. The more pain you have, the more tense you are, the more scared you are, and it's a vicious cycle that is really, really hard to get out of. And so, luckily, some of the therapists I had were able to treat or help me like reframe how I look at pain. And most pain groups, that's what they focus on, is reframing like how your body reacts to pain. So that's the only other thing that's been helpful. Definitely not pharmaceutical like interventions, like we talked about.
Yeah, no, it's critical. This is, as I mentioned in the first segment, it is a terror campaign within your body.
Yeah.
Like it is like constantly being under terrorist attack. You never know when it's going to hit.
Yep.
You never know if you're going to get better. You never know. You start losing faith in your body and thinking that you can't win. You just, this is an unwinnable battle, and that's where things like depression and anxiety can really spin out of control easily. It's I never had a heart attack, but I have a lot of experience with migraine, and I believe it is that level of pain in your brain.
Yeah.
It is incapacitating, debilitating, nauseating. Hope that you pass out just so that you can have a couple of minutes of reset, of relief. And then you start thinking of ways that you can induce that, right? So, yeah.
It's brutal, and
it's warfare.
If you have a toddler like I did,
I can't
there's
even
no
imagine.
way to explain. Well, now he's a toddler. He was a baby at the time. Like, you can't be like, oh, I can't do screaming right now. Like, I can't do loud play. Like, and that's just, and as a mother, you just feel so depressed. I mean, when you feel like you can't even be a mom, you can't, your identity, my identity was my job and being a mother. And so your identity gets taken away from you. It's everything. And like you mentioned, every day it's those of you who live with migraines, those days where before you open your eyes, you know that it's there. When you gain consciousness in the morning and you know that it's there, and your entire heart sinks into your stomach and you feel nauseous because you know that the next 15 hours of your life are going to be a battle to get through the day. Like, whatever it is you have to do, it's going to be a horrible battle for 15 hours until you can go back into bed and hope and pray that the next day you wake up and you don't feel it right when you gain consciousness. And most of the time you do, because it's months or days or, weeks long. And so it's awful. It's absolutely awful. Or like planning a trip, or, I speak at conferences all the time. I have presentations, and not knowing whether you're going to be able to get up there, and like, how do you commit to things? I remember not being able to buy tickets for anything for like a year because I didn't know what it was going to be like on the day of whatever the ticket was for.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I want to shift gears because I think we've covered this enough for most people to realize what we're talking about. Tell me what your life has been like in the past year and change that we have been working together. First of all, wins. Give me wins that you never thought you were going to get back to.
just being normal. Like I was, like a keynote speaker a couple of times this year at different conferences. I went out of the country twice with my kids, to take them on vacation. I went to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which
It's loud and a lot of lights.
A lot of lights.
Yeah. And if you've ever had migraines, you know that does
that's
not
like the
work.
That's the test. That's the migraine test, is going to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So all wins. I mean, I function normally. There's very few days, maybe a couple a month, if not less, at this point where my activity is impacted. There's days where I'm like, oh, it's kind of like in the background and it's like I'm not like that thrilled about it, but I can easily forget about it and just move on with my day. There's very few days where I'm actually like impacted and I have to change what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's a huge win compared to being completely incapacitated for a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing story, and that's why I had you in, and why I believe you are a shining example, an inspiration of not just migraine sufferers, but any woman who is driven the way that you are to serve, to get out there and help other people. We all face our challenges, and when it's big enough, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be some kind of challenge, and for most of us, it is the challenge that we are drawn to serve. Like, you have a history, so you were drawn to serve that community, and in the process, among other things, it brought up the issue for you was migraines getting in the way. And I'm so grateful that we work together and that I've been able to give you that back, because the work you're doing is so incredible and important. One last plug for tasks, the sanctuary, whatever, 5 other things that you're doing. So please.
Just thank you for everyone who supported me, like Dr. Palaki. The work we do is really, really important. Again, TASK serves about 500 people a day in our community, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and the sanctuary is right here in Santa Clarita as well, and we have served about 30 rescue animals and countless individuals that benefit from the programs, and you're a part of that. Thank you, Dr. Palaki.
Thank you. Contact information for any of that?
taskservices.org and sanctuaryaat.org.
Thank you so much. Alona Yorkshire, thank you for joining us today.
It.
You've listening to the hijacked version of the Senior Hour. It's Migraine Relief Mastery on KHTS FM 98.1, AM 1220, hometownstation.com. Welcome back to the hijacked version of the Senior Hour. We're talking Migraine Relief Mastery. It's frustrating. Anybody who's had the unpleasant experience of dealing with more than one migraine, more than once in a while, knows exactly what I'm talking about. But, there is hope. It doesn't have to be like what you heard in the first 2 segments. And let's just assume you haven't heard this. There's so much of not getting better when it comes to migraine, unfortunately, because most conventional treatments do not get to the root cause, right? So
it's just masking whatever the symptom is, and it's not just a headache, right? We're talking about nausea and like sensitivity to light also,
It can
right?
be. It can be all those things. Some people with migraine don't even get headaches. That's the crazy part. Some people with migraine just have the digestive stress. Some people with migraine just get dizzy. Some people with migraine just get freaky symptoms that nobody can explain. And it's all part of the same complex. It is a complex neurological condition that modern science says is completely incurable. It is a lifetime sentence. Here's the thing. That may or may not be the case. I'm not here to argue. I just know my own personal experience, and even under world-renowned specialist care, I would get migraines on the way home from the world-renowned specialist. So I get why people feel that way. I get why that is the information out there. For me, a big switch was someone on the fringe of medicine. Like, some people don't even consider them real doctors. An upper cervical chiropractor dramatically reduced my migraines, like 85% within the first year. Migraines were gone, but that 15% took me personally, and I kind of, I'm kind of studious. I'm kind of a geek. I kind of will not, more than anything else, I'm incredibly stubborn. So I would not let this go, and I did not accept that I was still getting migraines. Yeah. Even on top of all of that, it still took me like another 30 years to eliminate my migraines. So I understand why everybody thinks this is incurable. This is never going to go away. If it does, it's a spontaneous, healing or whatever. It's the power of God. I'm not arguing any of that.
Yeah.
I just understand why some people think, well, there's nothing that can be done, because most people aren't as stubborn as I am, just will not accept it. Yeah.
That's helpful, because then that led you obviously to all of the patients that you've been able to help. Yeah. And then of course your migraine relief mastery program is really beneficial for a lot of people online, right?
Yeah,
like a virtual
so
program.
It is virtual, and that's the crazy part about it. What shifted me is a physical treatment, but COVID changed everything as far as physical treatments were concerned. And that's when I really stepped up my game on teaching, showing people literally how to treat themselves on the root causes of migraine. And we're able to get amazing results. We wrote the book, Migraine Relief Mastery. That's the easiest first step for most people. It's available on Amazon. And for anybody who is ready to take the next step, who needs to know exactly how I beat migraines, and it's now a 12-week course that I offer. You can go to migrainereliefmastery.com and get the details. I provide a complimentary 45-minute virtual consultation at no charge. So it's a great first step. I'm also on TikTok. Every day I'm posting at least 3 hidden gems about how to get better.
And what's the handle for TikTok? Where can I find you?
Migraine Relief Mastery.
Perfect.
Easy enough.
Perfect.
And thank you, Jen, for all your help today. You've been listening to the hijacked version of the Senior Hour. Normally, we're sponsored by Comfort Keepers and Providence Holy Cross, but today it's all about Migraine Relief Mastery. migrainereliefmastery.com. You've been listening to the Senior Hour, KHTS FM 98.1, AM 1220, hometownstation.com.